Have you ever found yourself in a new situation, expanding your view of the world based on who you meet? Can you imagine giving up your family, your friends, and even your identity based solely on that interaction? I'd like to tell you about a man named Derek Black. When I heard his story a few months ago, it had a very profound impact on me. As the godson of David Duke, a white nationalist and the former imperial wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Derek was being groomed to be the quote-unquote heir to white power. Derek developed a website called Stormfront to convey the concept of white nationalism to children, and he started a radio show with his father, a former KKK Grand Wizard. Having been homeschooled to protect him from the diversity of people he would encounter in school, Derek had never been away from his family before going to New College in Florida. It was the first time that he had had any true contact with different races or religions. His parents weren't concerned, as they knew Derek was firmly rooted in his beliefs of white supremacy, and they assumed he would change the minds of people there. His first year in college, he lay low, waiting to make some friends before showing his true colors. But the truth came out before too long when an upperclassman found his website, Stormfront, and all of Derek's past, and posted it on a forum for all students to see. Derek was promptly ostracized, and he began living off campus. He was a ghost for a long while, avoiding interaction with other students and only appearing on his radio show with his father, until a fellow student at New College, a Jewish man named Matthew Stevenson, decided that the best chance to affect Derek's thinking was not to ignore him nor confront him, but simply to include him. Matthew started reading Stormfront and listening to Derek's radio show. And then, in late September, he sent Derek a text message. "What are you doing Friday night?" he wrote. Matthew Stevenson had started hosting weekly Shabbat dinners at his campus apartment shortly after enrolling in New College in 2010. He was the only Orthodox Jew at a school with little Jewish infrastructure, so he began cooking for a small group of students at his apartment each Friday night. Most of his guests were Christian, atheist, and black or Hispanic. In the fall of 2011, Matthew invited Derek to join them. Everyone at the Shabbat dinner worked hard to make Derek feel comfortable and welcome. This show of generosity and compassion from a man belonging to a group he previously saw as unfit for his idea of a perfect society confused Derek greatly. Slowly, he retracted his beliefs, eventually giving up white power entirely and looking to build up the same groups he had torn down, even though he knew this decision would cut him off from everything he had ever known, including his family. He wrote final thoughts on the public college forum, saying, "After a great deal of thought, I have resolved that it is in the best interest of everyone involved to be honest about my slow but steady disaffiliation with white nationalism. I can't support a movement that tells me I can't be a friend to whomever I wish, or that other people's races require me to think of them in a certain way or be suspicious of their advancements. The things I have said, as well as my actions, have been harmful to people of color, people of Jewish descent, activists, striving for opportunity and fairness for all. I'm sorry for the damage I have done." Derek, consequently, was denounced by his loved ones and lost the support of his family and friends, essentially giving up his identity and all that he had accepted as truth. The concept of racism and white power is appalling, and it is very hard to sympathize with somebody with those thoughts. That said, Derek Black grew up in a bubble of white supremacy, and this intense hatred is all that he had ever known. With nobody to challenge these ideas, what choice did Derek have other than to submit and hate entire groups of people based on nothing but stories and stereotypes? Yet, all it took was a simple invitation to dinner from a member of a group Derek had no previous interaction with and thus had a warped view of, to cause a complete reversal of his beliefs. We all live in bubbles, whether it is as closed off as Derek Black's or far more open. And because of this, we may have ingrained, preconceived notions about certain groups that we aren't in contact with. From whatever group we come from and to whatever degree, we have to realize that we cannot possibly fully understand one another without true contact. As Unitarians, we tend to pat ourselves on the back, and deservedly so, for being at the forefront of acceptance and encouraging difference. But sometimes we do so to an extent that is ostracizing. We are so inclusive that in our delight and inclusivity, we too form a bubble and begin to exclude. It is important to remember that groups are not inherently bad. Groups can help define who we are and give us a sense of belonging. But group mentality becomes harmful when, instead of holding your values dear and accepting others, you paint those outside your group as the other. And this breeds misunderstanding and hatred. This hostility can only breed more hostility. When surrounded by a certain mindset, the easiest path is to succumb and adopt that mindset as well. If we, as a society and as a congregation, attempted to branch out more, experiencing new people and places, as well as not being afraid to challenge the status quo, we will all come away with a broader perspective of the world and possibly, hopefully, more acceptance towards one another. Our own church has already made great strides in this direction with the Friends for Good program, which hosts a series of dinners allowing members of Muslim, conservative Christian, and our own Unitarian Universalist congregations to learn about one another as people, beyond the stereotypes, honor their differences, and build friendships. I encourage you all to learn more about that. I challenge you all to be inviting in all aspects and at all times. Change happens, as the Derek Black story shows, not necessarily on a grand scale, but rather through simple acts. Acts that every person here can engage in. Invite a colleague to lunch who doesn't share your political views, or reach out to a neighbor of a different religion. This church is a major leader in the triumph of love over hatred. I was dedicated in this very sanctuary 17 years ago, and this congregation rose and made a promise to raise me with love and acceptance. And I'm happy to say that you have all held up your end of the bargain. I want all of you to know how grateful I am for my family, my religion, and this congregation for giving me the foundation to go out into the world with an open mind, an open heart, and an eagerness to let love in.